This is Entrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart. With your host, Terri Levine. Listen every week as Terri tackles the topics that will help you become a successful heart-centered entrepreneur. Be sure to read the blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog. Come back often and add this show to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. And now here's Terri.
Hello and welcome to Heartrepreneur Radio and TV with Terri Levine. I'm your co-host, Velma Gallant, and I'm excited to be here today. You can connect with Terri, me, and other like-minded heart-based business owners in the Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine Facebook group. Go check it out. And if you like this show and any of our shows, be sure to like them, and we always love those 5-star reviews. Today's quote: "If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader." John Quincy Adams. Today's show topic is leadership and entrepreneurship. Our special guest this week is Peter Montoya. There are gifted speakers, best-selling authors, and successful entrepreneurs, but rarely do you find all three in one person. Peter Montoya is that rare exception, a thought leader, skilled orator, and leadership strategist with real life experience driving his insights and ideas. Peter was able to lead his company, MarketingPro, from a 3-person startup to an 8-figure exit, all without partners or investors. Peter's business acumen, inspirational journey, and human behavioral insight, and decades of real-life experience have helped him to become one of the most sought-after speakers and coaches, specializing in leadership development and creating high-performance teams. Peter teaches the skills and strategies he perfected to leaders and companies so they can transform themselves and their organizations. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Hey, Val, I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited about this because leadership to me is one of the most important things that our world really needs. And I don't just mean that from a corporate perspective. I mean that from a life perspective, because I think what people don't always remember is that they're leaders in their lives, they're leaders in their families, they're leaders in their church groups, their organizations, their friends groups, like they're leaders in everything.
I couldn't agree more. It's one of the first questions I'll ask my audiences is how many of you are a leader? And usually it's only a smattering of hands that go up. But then I show them exactly what you just iterated there, which is the domains of leadership. And most people think that leaders are just the ones, on a platform speaking or the head of a company. Mm-hmm. That's who they think are leaders. But there's 3 domains. The third domain of leadership is organizations, companies, and governments. So those kind of large organizations. That's the third domain. Second domain is friends and family. And either you are a better positive influence on your friends and family, or worse, you're leading in one way or another, either forward or backwards. And the first and most important domain is your self-leadership. You're absolutely right.
I love that. And so how do you see leadership and entrepreneurship merging together?
Oh, good question. This is one of those questions where I get to ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
So here's a question for you. Uh-oh. No wrong answers. Do you want more power? Yes or no? And then why? Do you want more power? Yes or no? And why?
I would have to answer that as yes. And I don't mean that from a power over others perspective, but I do mean that from a power over self. And I would actually change the word to choice for self. I would choose choice as my word over power.
Good
but
deal.
It is the power.
All right. So I'm going to give you and our audience here a definition of power that'll make you go, oh yeah, I want that. So power is the ability to achieve intended results. Power is the ability to achieve intended results. And so everything that we want in our lives that we currently don't have is our power differential. It's the lack of power we don't currently have. So yes, we can talk about, making more money or having a bigger business, but also all of the subjective things that make our life worth living are part of power too. A better relationship with your spouse or partner, better relationship with your kids, the ability to vacation wherever you want. Well, post-COVID anyway, wherever you want around the world, the ability to eat out or have take more meditative retreats. So everything you want more of that you don't currently have is your delta in power. So power, and guess what? Leadership and power, there really is no difference. So we as entrepreneurs cannot accomplish anything all by ourselves. And I've heard entrepreneurs make the argument or try to make the argument that they do everything by themselves. It is impossible. You couldn't get out of bed in the morning without the cooperation of hundreds, if not thousands of people who live in this very, very global, complex society that provides you water and electricity and food and housing and streets and roads and airplanes and banking systems. Those are all things that we are able to use our power through the cooperation of others to achieve the results we want to.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I think to your reference to entrepreneurs doing it all by themselves, I know that Terri shares that you often start out your journey as a solopreneur, but if you really want to be a true entrepreneur, then you are bringing other people into the mix. You're delegating to others, brainstorming with others, those kinds of things. Like you're never actually going to be doing it on your own if you want to be like an entrepreneur, not just a solopreneur, but an entrepreneur. And solopreneur is part of the journey, but not the entire journey.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. And the truth is you actually aren't doing it all by yourself. So if you wanted to truly do a business all by yourself, you have to literally strip off all your clothing and walk out into the woods and see how long you last. So everything that you're using currently in your house right now, as far as your computer and the electricity and having food, that involves the cooperation of literally thousands, if not tens of thousands or millions of people who have cooperated along the way and little bits and pieces to bring you those services so you can actually use them. So no, it's a completely misguided concept, even as a solopreneur, to think you were doing it all by yourself.
Well, and I think too, even if you walk in with that mindset of, I do it myself, you're handcuffing yourself. The reality is you're not doing it by yourself. But if you walk into it with that mindset, you are handcuffing yourself.
I think so too. And I started my entrepreneurial journey close to 27 years ago, and I was a solopreneur in an office by myself. And I really did kind of have the mentality of doing it all myself, and it was really a mistake. I'm starting another business now, and I am now pushing down. This is a big concept, by the way, pushing down as much authority as I possibly can. So I built an empowerment model. And so this is really helping me leverage my business better to get more out of my time, because I heard a lot of entrepreneurs say I don't have enough time, and it's not a time management issue. It is a leadership issue if you think you don't have enough time.
I like that. I really like that. I know my first foray into being an entrepreneur, it was the same way. And I walked in from the idea that I don't have the money, time, whatever, to bring on support. So I have to do it myself. I have to figure this out. And with the next journey into entrepreneurship, it was, I don't have the energy. I don't have the time to do it all myself. I need to find a way. I want to find a way to be able to bring in this support. And the other things that I learned was that I don't have all the answers up here anyways. And I don't want to have all the answers up here anyways. I want to do what I'm best at and bring in the help, bring in the people that do the rest of the stuff, because that's what they're best at. And so it empowers me and empowers them.
It's a phenomenal point. I think, looking back when I started my business, I really thought that I knew it all. And I really was on the pedestal. I practiced a lot of on the pedestal leadership, and it was really a hindrance to me now. So I embrace humility now. I realize I don't know it all. I realize that I'm not perfect. I realize I don't have all the answers. And what my job is to bring in the right people who are aligned with my vision and mission and have the right skill set, make sure they understand exactly what the objective is, where we are headed, and then know when to listen, when to empower, almost ride the reins is now what I do as an entrepreneur.
Well, and when I think of leadership, and this is going to date myself, I think of Star Trek. And how, Captain Kirk was in the captain's seat and he knew of all of his team, but he was very happy to delegate it to each of the experts. You've got your doctor, you've got Spock, you've got the person at the helm, all of those kinds of things. And he knew that the only way for the ship to fly was to have everybody on the team there. And so that's what I think of when I think of leadership is, I want to be aware of what's going on around me and have a basic understanding of everything, but knowing that the people that I've got are the right people.
Oh, you're absolutely right. So what you're invoking there is a passe model of command and control. So coming out of World War II, most of the world was flooded with hundreds of thousands of people who were trained in the military, and they brought with them the command and control authoritarian style of leadership, which is the leader knows everything, can never be challenged, never be questioned, and whatever they say, it goes. Their job as a leader was to do the strategy, the vision, the thinking, and also dictating. The kind of the mentality was, if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. And that was the old World War II mentality of leadership. And what has evolved in the last 25 years or so is the empowerment model. And the empowerment model now says, I am humble. And my job as a leader is I do strategy and vision along with the team, but it's to get buy-in of everybody else. And my primary job as a leader is to make my team better leaders than I am. That is my primary job, is to push down leadership so they are really empowered and they have more ownership of whatever their lanes in your organization may be, so they can have maximum latitude to get the job done. The question now I've got is, what's the least number of decisions I have to be involved in? When I first started, I wanted decisions over everything. And my days were full of emails and meetings because I wanted to be CC'd and included on everything. And now my question is this: what is the fewest things I can make decisions over? There's a great story of a submarine captain who delegated everything down to his officers and to his men. And the only thing he kept control of, final authority of, was launching weapons. Every other decision was delegated down to his team. That's the question I'm constantly asking myself. What is the least I can decide over?
I really like that, because one of the things that I have been very consciously choosing is my decisions, what decisions I want to make, because what I've noticed in my life is how often I move into decision fatigue. And so if I'm taking control of everything and needing to know everything, I'm going to exhaust myself with controlling every one of those decisions. Whereas if I do, like you say, where I'm bringing in the right kind of help and knowing that I trust them and that they're the right person for the job, then it should be easy for me to let go of those choices so that I can have my brain ready for the most important ones, which would be, which guns do I shoot and when? That makes a total sense to me. Although I was a Sea Cadet on the prairies, so some of these references make a lot of sense to me. So
that's great.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about organizations, and the bulk of our people that listen to this show are entrepreneurs. And what I like, though, is that an entrepreneur really could and probably should look at their business as an organizational entity, rather than just them, that they really should be building a company and not just a business. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, obviously. So this is what I do is I work with entrepreneurs who are usually one person, two person, three person shops and who want to be 10 or 20 person shops, and they want to figure out how to get there. And so that's my core audience. And I use the word organization. So for a lot of who I really try to avoid working with are salespeople. And I don't mean salespeople in title. I have a lot of people who they are salespeople, but they're not a salesperson in mentality. But a salesperson's mentality is they only have a 2 week to 1 month time horizon. They're only thinking 2 weeks to 1 month in advance, or only thinking about one deal at a time. I can't work with people who are only thinking 15 to 30 days in advance. I also don't like working with managers. And once again, not managers in title, but managers in mentality. Things are managed, people are led. So if you are wanting to micromanage your people and treat them like objects, I have no time or space for you. We really are about leadership. So whether you are a one person and a half, maybe you have just a part-time person or some contractors, as soon as you are there, you're technically an organization. You are a business, and your job, if you want to grow, if you want to get exponential growth, is to be pushing down and teaching leadership. The number one job of a business leader is to make other leaders in their organization. That's how you get exponential growth versus linear growth out of an organization.
I really like that a lot. I know Terri speaks a lot about, her client family members, and that she treats her organization like a family. And I think, again, in that family environment, we're doing the same thing. We're pushing down leadership skills to our children. So to do the same thing in our organizations, I think is super important as part of that whole growth process that we all should be going through.
No matter what business you are in, I really believe very sincerely your primary job as an organization is to be a leadership development organization who just happens to sell real estate or does financial planning or is a retail shop or is a restaurant. The primary job of your organization is leadership development, and you just happen to use a vehicle of a small business to get there. And as soon as you make that mental transformation into realizing you're in leadership development, your business gets a whole lot easier. No longer do you feel like you are shouldering all of the weight of the organization and what's going on. You now have basically empowered everyone in the organization to be a co-creator in the development of your organization. This is seems like a minor shift in mentality that makes a major difference in the growth of your organization and just the burden that you carry as an entrepreneur.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I love that. I want to make sure that our listeners have an opportunity to connect with you. And I think this is the perfect segue into it is how would somebody connect to you, connect to your information, perhaps connect to you directly to work with you?
I'm easy to find. 27 years ago, my first book was called The Brand Called You. I was one of the first books. I wrote one of the first books on personal branding. So if you want to find me, just go to petermontoya.com. And I've got a 8-week program, 2-month program called the High Performance Organization, in which we actually help you instill this leadership culture both into yourself and your future existing or future people. So we will actually teach you how to put in this leadership development culture in your organization and supercharge your performance.
Perfect. And so what I've heard through our conversation is whether that's an organization of 1 or 10 or 20, it's worth it to get into this mindset.
Half of our clients are one-person offices, and maybe they have a part-time assistant, or maybe they're just doing it by themselves. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So let's touch on the transformation from an individual to a leader. What are some of the most important things for us to focus on?
I run around organizations around a lot, or at least I used to when we had travel. And he would say, how do we want to empower our people? And I go, great. What does empower your people mean? And they go, we have no idea. So I will give you the empowerment formula. So if you are an entrepreneur and you're bringing on people and you want to empower people, here's the formula of how you do it. First one is make sure everyone is completely and totally clear as to the organization's objectives. Whenever I'm writing objectives, you want to make sure you know the 4 W's. The 4 W's of any objective are who, what, when, and why. So whenever you're writing objectives, you want to know who is going to do what, when they are going to do it, and most importantly, why. We are meaning creation, reason created driven creatures. And if you want people to be involved in the bought into the objective, they got to know why they are doing what they are doing. So first one is make sure everyone has crystal clear knowledge on where you're going as an organization, who, what, when, and why. Second part is authority. You want to be pushing down authority. Now, when you first bring people on, they don't have a lot of authority because you're teaching them policies and procedures. But over time, you want to start pushing down as much authority as you possibly can. So yeah, first come on, you treat them you train them in systems, you treat them your policies, you're creating things with them. But now when my people come into me and they say, Peter, we've got a problem, I rarely tell them what I want. I usually now just ask them questions and let them have their own answers. And sometimes the answers they come up with are answers I don't like. And oftentimes I will let them go with the answers anyway. Half the time they come up with a new procedure, a way of doing things, which I didn't think of. And half the time they might fail. And when they fail, they own the responsibility of that mistake. But people have greater ownership over what they create. And if you want your team to own the new departments that you're building, whether it be sales or marketing or customer service or operation or fulfillment, you have them co-create it. And that way they have ownership over it. So authority, you want to push down. And then the third step is judgment skill set. Whenever I make decisions now, I always let people into my thinking so they understand the process of how I make decisions. You want to have as much transparency over as many decisions as possible so they understand how you're making them, so they too can learn how to make decisions. Judgment. So objectives, authority, and judgment is what you want to train and push down to your team.
Again, all of that stuff, I love it. It makes a lot of sense to me. And what I'm hearing too is the connection between leading our team and leading our client family members as well, that mindset can transfer into not only inside of our organization, but how our organizations filter out into the world.
That's a really good point. I am the father of 2 teenagers, 14 and 17. What I realized is once my kids turned about 14 years old, it went from a parenting job to asymmetric warfare with my kids. And I realize I have less and less control every single day. So I've been trying to, as much as I possibly can, use the same model in my parenting. Like, what's our objective? And currently my kids at 14 and 17, it is to, number one, primary goal, maintain their emotional and physical health. That's, top of top. Mm-hmm. And then number two, it is to graduate high school in a way that helps them prepare to go on to college and then college. So they're very, very clear on their objectives. I try to give them as much authority as I can. And it's oftentimes I don't have a choice anymore. They're basically deciding what I can and cannot have influence on. And then third, I've done my best to share with them my thinking as far as judgment is concerned. I kind of think this period here as they're teenagers is kind of like this, if you remember, here's the metaphor. When the space shuttle would re-enter the atmosphere, mm-hmm. and they had that period like a blackout of like 3 or 4 minutes where you really have no contact. That's what these teenage years are like. So, I'm hoping on the other side, when I have contact with them again, when they're 18, 19, or 20, they're still in reasonably good shape.
It's funny because I tend to joke that my son, when he could look me in the eyes, which was at 12, mm-hmm. his ears stopped working. Mm-hmm. And so again, like you, it was, I can't tell him what to do anymore because he doesn't hear me. So what do I do next? And that was really the strongest development of my leadership skills has been my teenage son, who's now 19 years old and, starting to take on more of his life, take it on. He's really realizing now that his rush to be an adult maybe wasn't such a wise
I know.
choice.
Yeah. And the best thing you can do at this phase is let them fail. So they feel the consequences of their actions, which is oftentimes really hard for parents. They want to coddle their kids and bring them home and provide them everything and pay for things. And if you are working on a kid, you're struggling to get them launched, is let them fail as much as possible. Let them feel the consequences of their actions.
Well, and I love how you've chosen that same perspective inside of your organization. I think what it does is it creates the opportunity for exponential growth inside the organization, because you can't do it all yourself. You're not going to see all of the possibilities. And I think even those failures that our team members bring in create a lot of opportunity for learning that would not have been present had we forced the decisions.
I could not agree more. So yes, I lead my business in many ways the same way I lead my kids. You're absolutely right.
Well, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to bring it back to your organization, because not all of our entrepreneurs have families like you and I do. And honestly, they still get to lead their organizational families from that same perspective.
Yeah, and very true. I think most small businesses very smartly treat their team as a family. And here's a good note there is I never refer to my team as employees. Unless I'm talking about them with an HR person or an attorney, we're talking about a legal sense of it. Always, you can call them team. You can call them co-creators. You can call them contributors. And the reason that terminology is so incredibly important is that employees is somebody who you trade time for money with. You know, they give you a certain amount of time to do a certain amount of services in your business, and you trade them for money. And they go home and they punch the clock and they forget all about you when they go home. And if that's who you want, is someone who isn't invested in the business, who doesn't bring their passion and creativity, who is just a clock puncher, great. Keep calling them employees. But if you want people to bring all of their passion, their creativity, their problem solving, if you want them to be invested with you, you've got to make sure that in your mind, most importantly, and make sure they hear it in their ears, that you consider them a co-creator or a contributor. I call my people conscious contributors. And I know it's a little bit California for a lot of people. I get it. But really, I want to make sure that people understand that I realize that they are sentient beings and they are special. And I want them bringing themselves to my organization and investing the best of themselves. I want them thinking about how to make their jobs better when they go home at night. I want them coming in early because they have a passion for excellence. And if you want those things, you've got to honor them with a title that's worthy of their contribution.
I love that. I love that. In some of my roles, where I was inside of someone else's organization, I still, even from that perspective, treated them like family. And I actually would pop out emails that say, "Hello, work family." Right? Because I think, again, that brings in that connection, and you want to be connected to your team. You don't necessarily want to be controlling your team. You want to be connected to them.
Great. Yeah, the control, that goes back that very, very outdated model, command and control. You forget about it. There really is no control these days, unless you want to have people who just do what you say. But most likely, if you are in command and control, and people who are always in command and control will say the following thing on a regular basis. And whenever I hear somebody say this, I know it's them who's the problem. Any leader who says, "Don't they have any common sense? Doesn't anybody think for themselves?" Whenever I hear that, I know that they are the problem. So you got to decide if you want to manage culture or an empowered culture. When you walk into the post office or the DMV, that is a bureaucratic managed process. Everyone in there is just following a system. It is not meant to be led. Bureaucracies do a really good job of delivering the same service, the same product to hundreds of thousands or millions of people, but you got to follow into a little box. If that's what you want and everyone is just a robot, great. Keep thinking like that. On the other hand, if you want people who are thinking and or problem solving, then you've got to treat them that way and stop telling them every last thing to do and more or less condition them to start thinking for themselves. So managers tell people what to do and leaders teach people how to think.
I love that, because when it comes to, if I'm an individual who makes the choice to be a manager inside my organization, and my person who's taking on a task bumps into something that they don't have the answer for because I haven't taught it to them, and they can't get a hold of me, what do they do? Like, how do they take that on? I've taken away their autonomy, and the first thing they're going to think of is, well, I can't do this on my own. I have to talk to my boss, but my boss isn't available. What do I do? Right? So you cripple your organization by doing it that way. Whereas if I've taught the person how I make decisions, why I make decisions, and that kind of thing, then they've got that information to tap into, and they're empowered to be able to do it. They may or may not make the right choice, but at least they're coming from that perspective, and we're going to learn something no matter what. We're going to either learn that I've taught well, or I need to teach more, or there's a gap that we didn't know about. So it's perfect.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Moving in the right direction there. We want to spend so much time with our team, with transparency of thought and decision making, so they really know how to think. So hopefully, they're making the decision that you would make if you were standing there right next to them.
Perfect. So we've actually come to the end of our time. That went super fast.
Go fast.
I know, it was awesome. And I am confident that our listeners have gotten a lot of fantastic information from this, and it's tweaked some really good thoughts that they can move forward with. I want to make sure that our listeners, again, know how to connect with you and to find you so that they can access your information more deeply. So, and
that's easy. Again, it's just petermontoya.com. And if you forget the .com part, just search Peter Montoya and you will easily find me. And it's one of the goals, by the way, with all branding, is you want to be easily found by a Google search, and you will find me easily.
Exactly. Perfect. So thank you, everyone, for coming and joining us today as we talked about leadership and entrepreneurship. Be sure to head to Facebook and check out Heartpreneurs with Terri Levine, and you're going to be able to connect with a lot more heart-based business owners and be able to create your business from that perspective. And be sure to like and subscribe and give us those 5-star reviews. Thanks, and have an awesome day.
You've been listening to Heartpreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart, with your host, Terri Levine. This show is produced every week for your enjoyment and education. To make sure you never miss a single show, add us to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also read Terri's latest blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog, or follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. Your questions and comments are always welcome and appreciated. Send them to Terri on either Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for listening.